Personalization is definitely, an area that's gained a lot of traction, as we mentioned earlier. And it was really brought on because you have, your Netflix and your Google and your Amazon that's constantly just giving you very meaningful products or just updates on you. For instance, I'll get news on Google that Google knows I'm interested in receiving, right? So it feels like, okay, this is a meaningful interaction. It's not just like some random thing that's being generated for me. And that has moved over to the wealth management industry where clients expect this personalization from pretty much every aspect of their life because they're like, well, I know that you have this data on me. I know you're collecting all this information from me. Now, what are you doing with it and how is it going to benefit me?
So really, I mean, that's a great opportunity. Once that data is actually unlocked and exposed, as Jay mentioned, you start pulling that into machine learning capabilities, AI capabilities that start driving insight and relationships between that data and behavior that other clients have, and you can actually start looking at how that actually drives different outcomes from an investment performance perspective, from a client satisfaction perspective, from a amount of touch required to actually work with customers and how to make the most effective use of that time.
Yeah, it's one of the areas that we see a lot of is around how a lot of our clients, especially for end users of wealth management services, how can we give them those insights to have that more personalized service? So we've seen things on attrition. Advisors want to know, what is the attrition rate they're going to see from some of their clients. That's some interesting statistics that they can then be able to look at and say, how can I prevent that? Is there things I need to look at? How can I be able to provide more affinity to services that clients across a different segment may have, right? The traditional view, I think, of clients was based on asset value.
Mm-hmm.
And that is completely turning upside down, and we're saying asset value is just one dimension of the data we have, but we can actually now segment clients into much more granular groups that we can help provide service to in a different level.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting that you guys have brought this up. In our previous episode with Brian and Malik, we spoke about data insights and NBA or next best action because that is something that that advisors want now, right? They want to be able to have I guess sort of like a cheat sheet, right? Okay, like what do I need to focus on for today? So AI and artificial learning and ML machine learning are a big part of this. And all of that goes back to, again, data. Like, how do you collect it and then how do you use it?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the real power, or one of the real powers of that data, once you start unlocking it, is that you can start feeding it into those models and refine and have those models refine themselves over time, to drive that insight, to actually make those suggestions in terms of Lubna's going to do this next, or Tom is interested in that next, to actually help guide the advisor to make that interaction with the individual a lot more meaningful.
Yeah, and it goes to the standardization of the microservices. So when we do implementations for our clients, and we see what's happening in the industry with implementations for our clients, the actual product that they take is just a portion of what they need. It's really around the integration to the various systems. We spend a lot of time in working on the interface files and the interface specifications of how they can actually integrate that, and that turns out to be up to 40 to 60% of the effort, because that's what they want to unlock. They want to be able to use that product and connect it between the various components. And so you talked about how do they go about doing that journey, right? One of the areas they go about doing that is really looking at how is that product going to fit in their ecosystem, and how do they want to use the integration between those, right? And it's not, in some cases it may be using certain aspects of a product, in other cases it may be using the output of it in another system, and making sure that they are able to get the value unlocked from that.
And when we're talking about data, I believe research really plays a key part in it, because just because we have the data doesn't mean that we can just push everything to our clients, right? We need to really understand what it is that they need, what it is, so that we can custom tailor the kind of data that we push to them, and we can further personalize it. I think that's really critical for us to understand the current demand for such data as well.
And we're going there, but you're absolutely right. It's, we will get clients and we'll see in the industry, just give me all the data, right? And providing that data. So it's gone from I don't have the data to I want all of the data to what do I actually need to do with that data and what are the needs. So there's going to be a strong push for that. Absolutely.
And I think a lot of it comes back to something you mentioned earlier, Amy, is around the context of that data and actually being able to make sense of what you actually have, which is why we tend to cringe a little bit when we say we just want all the data. And I mean, of course, it's the client's data; they're definitely entitled to it, but the data as just raw data has so much less value than it could, versus understanding it in context. That is really the trick part.
Yeah,
The tricky part.
absolutely. So similar to when we're designing dashboards, for example, we don't just push everything. We don't just think that one size fits all. So we try to determine what is the role of this user, what do they need to get out of this data. So that's where we come in and personalize the kind of information that we present to them. And it gives them a lot of control as to what kind of information they really need for their day-to-day tasks as well.
Yeah.
So context really is key. You're
Yeah.
right.
As well as just identifying that there's something more here. You
Yeah.
really need to drill down into
Yeah.
that. But that's the next level. It's the starting the conversation and getting that. I need to get to the next step that is really important.
Yeah, just having the client portal and being able to log in and see stuff is no longer sufficient,
No.
right? It's, I want to be able to see what's specific to me,
Yeah.
and I want to be able to change it. I think that's more important, right?
Personalization is non-negotiable in this day and age. This is what our clients look for. This is exactly what they expect.
Yeah, and it sort of ties back into that integration piece. We talked about microservices and being able to integrate at multiple layers, whether it's at a data layer or a functional layer or at a presentation layer or at a user experience layer. Is being able to pull those things together, lets you build that personalized experience for the advisor and tweak the advisor or cue to the fact that there's something going on here that you need to dig a little deeper into, or there's a behavior that you want to try and capitalize on or change if necessary.
Yeah, and the clients that are and the products that are leading the industry that we see are ones that have that standardized microservices layer that can be applied and flexible for any type of systems that a client may have, right? The custom integration, they are required in some instances, but having that set of microservices library is really important to allow those clients to evolve as they use the product.
Well said. What he said.
Now, there were a few really interesting things that I heard in there, and I want to dive a bit deeper into. So, personalization, of course. Amy, you said that it's not negotiable, right? It's become table stakes now. So before, where it was like, oh, you know what, personalization, if you have it, it you're ahead of the curve, right? It's amazing. You're going to get all these different opportunities because you have it, since no one else does. But that's no longer the case. and technology is moving at a really fast speed. And of course, it's very difficult for firms to keep up because there's something new being released every day. We have all these really cool fintechs that come out and have really interesting services that are provided.